Hi, we're Bruna and Lisa, two PhD candidates. We love horror and we love overanalyzing. Join us. This episode will focus on the 2014 film The Taking, directed by Adam Robitel. Just a heads up, this episode contains major spoilers. If you're not that fussed about those, relax and enjoy. But if you are, then click pause and come back once you've watched it.
Cool, so let's dive into it. This week we are going to discuss The Taking of Deborah Logan, or also known as The Taking.
So, The Taking of Deborah Logan was directed by Adam Robitel, I think that's how you pronounce his name, and co-written by himself and Gavin Heffernan. So they later worked together in Paranormal Activity: The Ghost Dimension as writers. And Robitel, he directed Insidious: The Last Key and Escape Room, which both were quite successful as he's working on sequels. So The Taking of Deborah Logan is a found footage film, supernatural horror. It tells the story of Mia, who is a PhD medical student. So here maybe that is why we chose this film, because she's a PhD student. And who is doing a documentary as part of her thesis. So her documentary explores how Alzheimer's affects patients as well as the primary caregiver. Mia and her crew decide to follow Deborah Logan and her family, mainly her daughter Sarah, to show the deterioration of the disease. However, soon Deborah's transformation proves itself to be more than the result of her disease, and they discover she has been possessed by the spirit of a child killer. Pum pum.
Cool. I wanted to add, because there were like 3 escape room films like last year or maybe the year before. So I want to say this is the one with Logan Miller, right? The one that was a commercial success, that was like in the cinema, the one with like all the really over the top sets. Because I've seen about, I think 3, maybe 4 films about escape rooms that were called escape rooms in the same year, right? So I made a note for myself to mention which escape room he actually directed, but it is the one that was a bigger success. So I think, and there's a new one coming out, I think either this or next year as well.
Yeah, I saw one of the escape rooms on Amazon, thinking that was his film. It wasn't. So it was a bit of a of a waste of time, because I didn't like the film.
Yeah, they all I think this one was the most exciting one for sure, because it had a bit more to it, and the other ones were quite I think I enjoyed the other ones because I really like escape rooms. I think they're a really good setting for a horror film, but once you've seen 3 of them, I think that's just about enough, really. Yeah, I just wanted to say from my point of view about this film, because obviously we're gonna be talking about Alzheimer's, and I don't know about you, but I feel like some of the stuff I wrote out, I will just say I'm not actually an expert in Alzheimer's or anything, so maybe I'll get something wrong, and everything is pretty much just from my own experience with it. So I just had like a little disclaimer that maybe some of the stuff I'm saying might not be someone else's experience potentially. So yeah, let's dive into it. What kind of did you think overall of the film?
So my reaction is that I didn't like the film that much. So I saw on YouTube actually a 3-second review of the film, where the guy just basically looks at the camera and says conventional, and that's basically how I feel about the film. So yeah, I think that I don't know. This film could have been so much more, and the idea behind the film was such a good one, but I just think it didn't deliver.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that mainly. And also, I think this film came out before Relic, but Relic also has a similar idea about portraying Alzheimer's, and I think they did it slightly better in different ways. But yeah, I think definitely good concept, maybe not as good of
Yeah, I was actually gonna talk about Relic as well because I know you didn't like it as much and I loved it. So I just wanted to put it there. But yeah, I feel like Relic did something so much deeper and was able to convey the monstrosity of this disease by focusing on the disease itself and not the possession. Whereas the taking of Deborah Logan has all of that possession and investigation and all of that that just takes it back a little bit from the disease itself.
Yeah, I actually wrote down the exact same thing. And there were things I didn't like about Relic, mainly because of the ending. But
Mm-hmm.
what I did like about it is that really focus on the effect that Alzheimer has on other people and mainly your family. And I think even though um, I think the taking did focus a little bit on Deborah's daughter,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't really see her as a protagonist. I thought the PhD student Mia was more of the
Mm-hmm.
protagonist, which made me detach a little bit more from the from Deborah maybe and from the experience that the people around her are having.
That's quite interesting because I didn't feel that. I felt
Okay,
well, I didn't feel that I connected a lot with the daughter. Sarah is it? But
Sarah, yeah,
I felt like her relationship with Deborah was quite well constructed because we had that. Okay, so Sarah is queer and her mother is clearly like really this posh old lady, and they have that kind of disagreement, like you're not wearing a blouse and she's wearing like a gigantic shirt, and they have little fights about that. So I thought that those little moments helped to just construct their relationship a little bit more.
yeah. Okay, that's interesting actually. I think yeah, I do see what you mean. I just felt for as an overall criticism, I didn't feel like maybe the film focused on that enough. Maybe if they had more moments like that, I
Yeah,
would have
for sure, for sure.
yeah, I would have liked it more. So I mentioned this to you before we recorded this already, but a big thing for me, and that's I just yeah, let's just focus on like the found footage
Mm-hmm.
concept a little bit. I really like found footage films, and I really like that. I don't care how ridiculous the concept is as long as it's believable within their world, you know? So even like a film like Unfriended, where obviously it all takes place on a computer and there's like some kind of demon in the computer or whatever, that's fine as long as the film sets that up in a believable way. The thing that really annoyed me about this
Mm-hmm.
film is that um, they so the film was found footage because it was made by a medical PhD who, for some reason, is making a documentary for her thesis, which I don't know. I just feel if you're studying to be a doctor, that seems like a really weird thesis to do if you're not in the art in an art school. As well as that the actual educational side of Alzheimer that Mia was because Mia was kind of doing these shots where she was talking to the camera about Alzheimer's and the medical side of it, and that was actually really really basic.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Even though I realized like the film was made for the audience that are not medical students, so maybe they didn't want to go too deep into it. I don't know why it just really really frustrated me that that's the concept they came up
Mm-hmm.
with and that that's why it was a found footage because it just felt to me why would anyone make a documentary if you're gonna be a doctor, and why would you then hire a film crew and have a cameraman and a sound person that all come. I don't know why it didn't. Maybe like I'm just over analyzing it a bit, and maybe it's because we're doing a PhD, so we understand like that is maybe unlikely. Also, we're at a British university. Maybe it's different in
Mm-hmm.
America, or I think this is set in America, isn't
Yeah, yeah,
it?
yeah.
So maybe they do that. But overall, I just kind of thought I don't like the way they introduce the found footage
Mm.
in this way. But maybe just because it doesn't make sense to me, and it really took me out of it for a little bit. I was just like, what? Why would you make this kind of documentary
Mm-hmm.
film? Because that's I feel like that's more like a very much like a humanities type
Mm-hmm.
thesis. I don't know, but maybe I'm being a bit overprotective of the word
Yeah.
PhD. But what do you think?
Um, yeah, I agree with you. I think that that decision was a bit weird. if they wanted to have found footage of someone in their family, they could have just, have, I don't know, Sarah herself filming her mother's deterioration or something like that. But yeah, I thought it was a bit weird. But I had moments that I liked it. When Mia was talking to the camera, I just thought that was completely unnecessary because she could have just, done that afterwards in a studio or in a hospital, just anything with a nicer setting.
Yeah, that's true as well, actually.
Yeah, and when they have that animation to describe what the disease is, and it's quite weird. It just looks like it was done, I don't know, on like Windows Movie Maker. Such a weird animation that they had. But I also, from the production point of view, I quite understand why the guy decided to have found footage because he said that he had like a budget of $1.5 million, and found footage is quite cheap.
It's cheaper to make. It's funny because normally with found footage, the quality is not as high as the quality of this film was. So I think, yeah, I definitely think it was a little bit strange. I mean, it's not. I wouldn't write the whole film off just because I think the initial
because the quality of the camera was so good.
It was too good. It was just too good. It's a I think found footage maybe doesn't really apply because I guess I'm trying to think. I don't want to spoil the end of the film for anyone, but I'm trying to think how, if it was like, because found footage originally is literally they found the footage. I don't think it's as much like that anymore now because people are a bit more familiar with the concept, right? Yeah, but I do more think like that the found footage needs to have a bit more of a purpose, because it's a lot more widely made, but yeah, it is okay. It's I can forgive them. It's more that then the rest of the film I also wasn't too big of a fan of, so that does add to it. I just wanted to definitely mention it.
Yeah, it is a bit weird. Like I can certainly relate to why Mia did that because before doing film, I did international relations, and every time I had to present a paper, I would try to do something about films, which is like it makes no sense. So I relate to that, but then again, I wouldn't do my whole PhD on like a documentary. And maybe she was doing like an educational documentary to give to schools or anything. But then, all of the interviews that she has outside of the house, and that would have been pointless because why would you do that?
I think, yeah, and I think it was more the fact that she seemed to be directing it. I mean, maybe she didn't, but if you're directing a film, that's just a whole different skill set. And yeah, so she should have more just written it maybe then. But yeah, obviously, maybe I'm just going into it a bit too much, considering we are talking about a fictional film about possession, but but I just think everything should be realistic within what they're trying to make us believe.
For sure.
And I didn't think it did that. Yeah, and then I wrote down a lot of stuff about Relic as well. But what I wanted to talk about next was just the theme of possession. So, because obviously you were saying about how Relic did it a bit better and a little bit less on the possession side and a bit more humane, right? Yeah, I don't know. I did write down that I actually think using Alzheimer's in a horror film is weirdly suitable. So obviously my thesis is about mental health in horror films, and I don't think at all we should make it a focus for entertainment or anything, but I remember when my grandmother had Alzheimer's and she was in a care home and stuff, when we'd visit her, there was quite a creepy vibe sometimes. So like I wasn't really scared of her per se, but like, for example, we went there and there was this old lady walking around with this porcelain doll, and she's treating the porcelain doll as like a baby, and I was generally like really like, oh god, this is actually it's a bit scary. And there would just be random elderly people coming over to you and talk about things that wouldn't make sense. And I guess I think the reason it scares us is because we're not used to it, and we're not used to being spoken in a way that doesn't make sense to us.
Yeah, no, for
sure.
So
I definitely think it's good, and I think possession is a good way to maybe to to maybe show that, because I guess technically your brain sort of takes
Hmm.
over when you have Alzheimer's, and starts to make you mix up things. Um,
But don't you feel
so
though that, I mean, I completely agree with what you're saying about possession itself. But what they did here is like have this whole other storyline about this child killer, and then how they kill the child killer, and now they have to investigate where the body is. They have to burn the
oh
body and
yeah.
have to do all of that. So I do agree that possession. So like for example, I don't know, The Exorcist. So she's possessed by this demon, whatever. Okay, so that is the whole concept. She's possessed by a demon. Whereas in the taking of Deborah Logan, it's like, oh, she's possessed by a demon, and the demon is this and this and that. So I just found that that in itself took away from the power that could have been just possession or, being the disease.
You know what's crazy? When you just mentioned that whole thing about this Charles and this killer, I have completely forgotten about it because it just didn't stick with me at
Yeah,
all. So all I could think about was just like the other things. And that's literally why I didn't like the film, because, yeah, I so agree. Why was it this whole other storyline in it? It just made it so,
exactly. Yeah,
yeah, it's just so over the top. And I guess that's the thing with Relic. No matter what you think of the film, at least it really focused on Alzheimer's,
exactly. Yeah.
and it didn't have this whole extra storyline where you're just like, what is this?
Exactly. And I was like that. Like I liked the beginning of the film. I was really enjoying the scares and all of the gore. Loved it. But once they introduced that child killer, I was like, well, I don't care about the film anymore. And now the woman, Deborah, was like kidnapping this girl from hospital. I was like, I don't care about this other girl. Like, I really do not care. So I think that yeah, it was a missed opportunity actually. Also because like Robitel, well, he said in some interviews that he thought that horror in itself, like the horror of Alzheimer's in itself, was so horrific that nothing else was needed to create fear. But I was like, so why did you
Then
create something
why?
else? And then he said, what did he say? He was like, he said that oh my god, where is it? Oh, I don't remember what exactly he said, but just being sincere about the disease, that he was, really touched by what happened to his uncle because he suffered from the disease as well. But I just thought it was a missed opportunity. Like I thought that his ideas were sincere, but this whole possession with the child killer, I just do not understand.
It's a bit bizarre that he's even said, "Oh, I think Alzheimer's in itself is terrifying," and I would agree that it is definitely something that, and a lot of people can relate to it, unfortunately, as
Exactly.
well. So yeah, it does feel, it's annoying that it's such a missed opportunity, considering he knew it. It kind of was, with maybe, sometimes, like, I've got this a little bit as well when I'm writing a screenplay. Sometimes you just start to worry about not filling up the film maybe
Hmm.
enough, and maybe that's what happened. I don't know. But it's, yeah, definitely a shame, especially if he's actually said that
Exactly.
as
Yeah.
well.
But yeah, so like you said about your grandma, I think it's quite interesting because I have a similar story. Because my granddad, he suffered from Alzheimer's as well. But the whole situation was quite different with us because my mom is a neurologist. So she actually realized that my grandpa had a disease, and that was like during a Sunday like dinner, like Sunday family dinner. It's like, oh, that's quite good. Like, let's have dessert now. Um, and yeah, no, I could totally relate. Like when he never went to a home, so we would like a care home. He was always in his own house, so just going there was so bizarre. And I mean, I've always liked horror films, and like seeing him and seeing what the disease was doing to him and my grandma, who was also his primary caregiver, as well as three other people in the house. It was
Hmm.
just so. It was like a horror film. And then I would watch horror films and be like, yeah, but this is not scary at all. Like, if I have that, like, 2 streets away from my house, like, so yeah, I don't know. I just think it was, I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. It's like the real life experience of going through something like that. And I agree, it is scary. Like, it's maybe. That's why I think a lot of the times people that say they don't like horror films, they just think of kind of the serial killer running after this woman with like a knife. And I enjoy that kind of horror as well, but I think horror that focus on this kind of subject is actually definitely more scary and also just more relatable. And sometimes that can be really interesting to see. Maybe not so much in this film.
Yeah.
Well, at the start of the film, I liked it. Um, but again, I just think, again, with Relic, I really thought they really showed how scary it is for the family that you can't trust like your mother and things like that anymore. And with this, it was there was that relationship between Sarah and Deborah, but like I said before, there's not enough for me to find it as relatable
Yeah.
as other films have done this. I can't really think of any other films besides Relic and this one that have done Alzheimer, at least in terms of horror. I've seen The Father the other day as well, and that was really good. But that's a bit different because that was more dramatic. Dramatic representation of that.
So let me ask you, what did you think of the horror side of the film? Like, what did you think of the scares and all of the gore?
There was one particular scare that I found really horrible, which was in the, I want to say attic, where she was, because there was like this piano, right? It was a piano? I'm
Yeah,
not
I
so
think it was a
sure.
piano.
But they go to the attic at night, and she sat there kind of naked, and I thought that was really, really scary. And overall, I think actually the build up was quite good, and there were a lot of bits I found really creepy. And then when she just stood there by the window and things like that. Yeah, I think from a horror standpoint, except for like kind of the whole end sequence, I thought the end sequence was then a bit silly.
Yeah.
But everything before that, I thought actually was quite, quite well done in terms of horror. What did you think?
Yeah, I was.
Did you find it scary?
Mm, no, I didn't find it scary per se, but I liked how the scares were built and
Hmm.
all of the gore as well. I really enjoyed. So I feel that the taking. I'm not gonna say the taking of Deborah Logan because it's too long. So I do feel that the taking was. So I feel like it's one of those films that you haven't seen it, but you know the images of it. So for example, last week when I watched it was the first time I'd ever seen it. But that scene where she's eating the child's head, or when she has her whole jaw is like open.
Yes, I've seen that before
Yeah,
too,
that was
actually.
I had seen that in like loads of things, like even YouTube like videos like, oh, possession, real possession stories, and they have that face. Um, so I was happy to watch it, and I think that all of the gore was quite fun. I really enjoyed it. When Deborah is like taking patches of her skin, and
Oh, that was horrific, wasn't
yeah,
it? Yeah.
I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, and also like to be completely honest, I do think in general I enjoyed just watching the film. I think I don't like that's not very analytical, but sometimes it's nice to just watch a film that you're not, that's not boring and that's just like it's quite quick paced and just enjoyable to
hmm
watch. And I think this film was definitely for a
Yeah,
horror fan. I enjoyed myself, and I think that's fine as well. And it's just more if you actually do overanalyze it a little bit. I definitely think it could have been a lot better in. I don't want to say that I feel like films need to educate always, but I think
well, if that was
if
the
there's an opportunity
intention.
to, yeah, that too. Because I think I can imagine that not being the intention in this film, and then I feel like maybe it was I wasn't educated enough maybe
hmm Yeah, maybe
on the topic.
maybe not necessarily educate, but just take something and make well, a sincere portrayal of it with horror. No, I completely agree with you. I don't think that every film needs to have an agenda, or that, we need to, there needs to be layers and layers of subtext. Um,
Yeah.
and this is actually what I found when I was reading reviews of this film, that either people loved it or people hated it. And there was
Not really any in
no,
between.
and there was a lot of people that actually loved it. It's like, oh, the taking of Deborah Logan is amazing, blah blah. So I do think it works. I think it works as a horror film for people that enjoy horror. I myself did not like it, but I don't think it's a bad film because of that.
Yeah, because I think the reason I watched it in the first place was because it had those good reviews, and then I was a little bit disappointed that it wasn't as good as I was hoping it would
Hmm.
be. But yeah, I agree. From what I've seen, it is a very much hate or love kind of film. And that's quite interesting as well, because it means that either way, it's bringing out something in people. Because I think if the subject matter wasn't about Alzheimer's, maybe people didn't care so much about how it was represented and how it was used. But maybe because it was this topic, I think it was important enough for people to either really connect to it or not at all. And then you, of course, always will have the horror film fans that just watch it just for the sake of it being a horror film, and they
Hmm.
just want to see the horror moments. I think for those moments, at least for me, I know you said you didn't find it as scary, but I think there were definitely scary enough bits in it for just the horror fan that just wants to sit down and watch it on a Sunday night or
Yeah,
something.
exactly. Yeah, I think it's a quite a chill film. Like, you watch it, you have some popcorn, and I mean, I know I was really mean to it in the beginning, but I didn't completely hate it. It's just that I was expecting, because I read the reviews before, so I saw the interviews before I watched the film.
Mm,
So I thought that this guy was making something, I don't know, echoing
a
his
bit, yeah.
uncle and just stuff like that. And then, oh my God, came that child killer.
And then the whole yeah, I think that whole scenario could have just been taken out,
Yeah,
but
but then we had the child in the hospital, and the when Deborah is eating her face, so that's quite good. So at least he served the purpose.
and there's also just like, again, some of these inconsistencies. I was thinking as well, one, why when Deborah started getting really, really bad, why on earth would she keep the film crew there? If that would be my mother, I would have just been like, nah, this is not, I don't care, like, just leave. Like, I know that they tried to get him to leave, like, I think once, all the way at the start of the film. But it wasn't clear to me why they just kept going.
Hmm.
Again, I guess that it's just like the use of found footage just didn't work there again.
Hmm.
And then
That was the
also,
money as well.
oh yeah, that might be true as well, isn't it? Because they needed the money maybe from the crew. But then where's there did the crew get all that money from
Yeah,
to
true.
to pay them enough money that it was worth it for them to have this like potentially kind of humiliating thing to be. I mean, and I'm not saying Alzheimer is humiliating, but I think for Deborah herself, I think she felt
Yeah,
humiliated.
even that neighbor or former lover, I don't know who he was, but he was quite against it because because he was saying they were exploiting them, and that he himself would sell like a tractor to give them money. So
Mm,
yeah.
yeah, so I do think. But maybe I don't wanna 100% judge this part, because I just think maybe I've missed something. Maybe Mia was meant to be like super rich or something,
Perhaps,
or
yeah, I
maybe
don't know.
for some reason had loads of funding to make this like semi-professional film. So maybe that's not relevant. But then also, in the hospital when this child goes
Hmm.
missing, um, and then you just see Deborah walking out on like a security camera,
Hmm.
hand in hand with a child. And I'm just thinking like, who's not watching this footage
Yeah.
then? It's just like, why is she just able to walk out with a child that like has just been reported kidnapped at the hospital? And then like, in general, just that whole storyline again was just, why is it in it? I don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always sad, I guess, when a child is kidnapped in a film, but because I swear it literally went from nothing to seeing the parents being distraught that the child has gone missing. So it was a little bit like, well, I've got no connection to these
Yeah, exactly.
people.
They're even less one-dimensional than the film crew, so I mean, of course, I'd want them to be without a daughter, but I just, like, the stakes are too high.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Like those characters were not fleshed
Yeah.
out. There was nothing really besides the fact that it's a child. That was literally the only thing that we knew about them and why we should care.
Yeah, I think that the child as well, her character hinted at the possibility of having a sequel. So maybe they wanted to cash in on, sequels of found footage.
Yeah, because the end was with when she was a bit older, right?
Yeah.
And then yeah, that kind of annoyed me because the ending made me feel that the film wasn't about Alzheimer's at all. It was just about possession. Thinking about it, that actually makes it even worse because then it's just like, well, if you're now saying that potentially your child maybe has the same disease or possession or whatever as Deborah had, then this is not about Alzheimer's at all.
And the child had cancer, so maybe they're equating that with cancer as well, but like...
Because she was magically kind of...
so she got really healthy
well.
when, she was possessed. And then she gives like a smirk at the camera. It's like, come on.
Yeah, not the best ending for what we watched at all.
But if we have that, then the name The Taking is better because, it's the taking of the both people. But the taking of Deborah Logan, then, the ending is not consistent.
So, I didn't read this in too much depth, but there was a couple things I did pick out from it I really liked. So it's an article called On Reproduction of Old Age in the Taking of Deborah Logan by Agnieszka Kotwazinska. I hope I pronounced that right, but I think I did. So I really liked, so this is like a literal quote. So it says, in the taking of Deborah Logan, potentially destabilizing moments occur when, in the face of progressive loss of control, memory, and bodily functions, the main protagonist is momentarily experienced as resisting the dehumanization and loss of agency conventionally associated with Alzheimer's disease and possession alike. And that actually made me enjoy the film a little bit more. Just this one sentence of how they spoke about the film, I found really interesting. Well, in general, I really enjoyed that they used the word resistance. Because, again, I'd imagine if you have Alzheimer's and you've lived like a life of independency, to then have to admit that, you can't remember things or that you need help, that must be really, really difficult. And another thing they mentioned was that the story uses the concept of trans aging. So I'd not heard of this before, but it basically means like feeling a different age to your own.
Okay, yeah.
And I thought that was interesting because I thought for sure my grandmother, well, I guess because from what I know is that with dementia and Alzheimer's, that your long-term memories become a bit clearer and your short-term memory becomes a lot less clear, and you really don't remember things that happen to you on a day-to-day basis. And my grandma was definitely speaking a lot about the war, or even about like school days. So I don't know if she thought she was younger than she was, but she's still the kind of living in like history. The only thing I did find about the term trans aging when I did a little bit deeper, well, I went a bit deeper into Google, and it is like a little bit of a term that shouldn't be used very lightly because it's also something that can be used, for example, by people who are attracted to minors to say like, oh, but actually I identify as that age or something. So I think, but I do think the way I just explained it is quite interesting, that maybe I wouldn't say people with Alzheimer, but maybe in Deborah's case, maybe she was trying to hold on like her youthful self. And I read as well the other way around. You have people who have like a traumatic childhood, find it difficult to, for example, step into adulthood. I need to do a lot more research on the actual on this term, but I thought it was interesting that they used that word in this article because I hadn't really looked at it that
Mm-hmm.
way.
No, for sure. Yeah. I what was the name?
Trends aging.
Trans aging. Um, yeah, I find that quite fascinating because if you've led a life of self-sufficiency, your own person, and then when you become older or you have problems that you need people taking care of you, you quite regress. So
Mm.
so you become more dependent on people, and like you said, your long-term memories are clearer than your short-term memories. You start to So for example, you don't see that in Deborah's case, but some patients do that they no longer recognize their children, but they want their mother or their father to take care of them.
Yeah.
So this misrecognition of oneself or other people around them is quite scary as well.
But yeah, I don't know if it's completely if that was completely shown in the taking actually. I don't think so. But it would be one of those things like if I'd maybe rewatch it now and really pay attention to just that aspect of it, maybe
Yeah,
there are some
she
interesting
was going back
things in it.
to her job, like she was doing things related to her job. So maybe that
Yeah, her
was
job as a what was it like the not call center,
but
but
like a call center,
um
yeah,
yeah, like an old
like an
school
operator. Yeah,
yes, yeah, call I think it's like a call
yeah,
operator, isn't it?
exactly.
So maybe that's actually a good point. So maybe that's kind of how they showed
Yeah,
that she was living in that time where she was working quite a while ago, of course.
they there is a reason why they put that in the storyline, because it's again with the child killer, because she was listening to him or something like that, wasn't she? That's how she discovered him, through her job. So
Oh
so
yeah,
again, another
this
missed
whole
opportunity.
yeah, that's actually that's so sad because I guess well unless if they wanted you to look at it both ways, that's one it's a thing where
Hmm.
she's living in the past, but also but I do think it was probably I probably agree with you that it was probably put in more because of the child murder whatever case. Instead of jumping at the opportunity to show this whole living in the past thing that that people with Alzheimer tend to do.
But also interesting enough is that Mia tried to do this like biography of Deborah's life. So she was using footage of Sarah as a child, wasn't she? I don't know. Then we saw her
Mm,
dressed as a princess, and so Mia does that to Deborah. So maybe like she's not forcing Deborah to see her past, but they're talking about it a lot because Mia wants to know.
mm. I wonder why Mia wanted to know. Um, I guess she wanted to maybe just show a bit of Deborah's
Yeah.
life, but then again, through that, she didn't really show as
No.
much maybe of the stuff that she was like meant to show as a student. But I don't want to now say like oh I think it was bad or it was good. I think I said what I wanted to say about
Mhm.
it. I think it had good bits and especially and in particular it just had potential but didn't reach its full potential. I would say.
Exactly.
Um, I'd recommend it to certain horror fans, but not
Yeah.
people that enjoy the kind of deeper level stuff because I just didn't think it quite hit that for me.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. It could be a fun film. The scares could be fun. I enjoy them. Like I said, I like the gore stuff. I found the beginning was super nice. I really enjoyed it. Perhaps Mia's adventures with her, documentary was a bit ugh. But yeah, I thought that the first part of the film was quite nice. Then the ending was a bit odd. But again, I think that if you're in for the horror stuff, the scares and all of that, then it certainly has it. All of those running around with the camera, you don't get to see what's happening, some explosions. I don't know, could be fun for some people. The Power of Pod Compels You is produced and hosted by Bruna Lucas and Lisa Gertz, and edited by Lisa Gertz. The music is by Julia Sofia, the artwork by Cibele Lucas, and the narration by Bruna. This podcast is hosted on Buzzsprout. If you want to suggest a particular topic or film for us to discuss, then please email us on thepowerofpodcompelsyou@gmail.com or Twitter @powerofpod.